if you don't have the time or you think like you don't want to jump on this at some point, you might want to get help from an expert on this. So here's what you can do to evaluate copywriters. So their experience. So from what I've noticed, an hourly usually means junior. So if sometimes you do want somebody who's a little bit more junior. Veterans, they start to see their value a bit. They see the market rate around other copywriters. Rookies don't really see that, so they just go hourly. And this is a rule of thumb. There are exceptions to that. You might see. Looking at their clients. So you might see some copywriters with big client logos and names. Sometimes you won't. And the reason is there's a lot of NDAs involved, as you probably know about. And some copywriters just prefer smaller companies or medium-sized companies because they like working with them. So that might not be a goal of theirs.
Michael, one thing that I'll mention here also, just in personal experience, I've hired a lot of people and a lot of contractors. If you have big clients on your website as a contractor or copywriter, whatever, that doesn't necessarily mean that that person who's showing that logo actually was the lead on the project or did all the work. I've interviewed a lot of people who ended up saying after some prodding, oh yeah, I worked on that project, and they basically served the coffee to the team in the So, I mean, you have to really ask the right questions and say, oh, tell me more about, what you did for that client and what was involved in that work. And you can very quickly sort of unravel it if there's unraveling to be done.
Yeah. And they might be limited on what they can talk about, once again, with the NDA stuff. But ask them what their involvement was and what they did for them. Sometimes it is something smaller. It might not be the lead on their website. If they worked for Google, they might have just did a small portion of that, but they still work for Google, right? Which is hard to do. So it can mean something, and sometimes it might mean more or less than when you first see it. What I want to recommend for people is take a look at their testimonials. It's a great way to see how a client has how they've served their clients, and even better, case studies. It takes a little while to put together a good case study, but those are like the testimonial on steroids. So that's always good to see.
And do those testimonials, again, mention that person by name? Oh, Michael does such a good job with X, Y, or Z, or do they just say, it was great working with the super fantastic team? And you're like, who's that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, if they're a bigger team, exactly. So who are they interacting with? Really, it's just me. So if you say that, that's me automatically.
Wasn't an accurate example.
Yeah. Maybe for somebody bigger. So here you go. Portfolio. And here's what I've noticed a lot is, and especially coming from as an animator, it was all about the demo reels, all about the portfolio. For copywriters, the medium is the message. That means, how's their website? They wrote it themselves. Do you like that? What did it do for you? Did you read the whole thing? Did it make sense? How do you feel at the end? Are you persuaded? You almost don't need the didn't they work on 80? I need to see that they wrote 80 emails. If they know how to write, you will know right away based on how you feel. So how is their own copywriting? And that's eventually something that a good copywriter is able to do for themselves, even though writing for yourself is the toughest thing ever. So keep that in mind when you are evaluating people. Okay, so getting the most out of your relationship. If you do hire a copywriter at some point, you want to make sure that you get everything you can get out of it, get the best copy possible. So try hands off, but don't disappear. Let them do their job. If they're a conversion copywriter like I am, we are going for the same goal as you. We are going for your KPI. What do you want? What you're trying to get? If it's more leads, something like that. Think of it as a strategic partnership, and a lot of why that comes to be is because when we look at the data, what the customer's saying, it might not be what you thought it was all about. Maybe it's something different. And if the data says one thing, but our expectations are different, keep an open mind on that. I don't personally know any copywriter who doesn't want to be the reason that their client is making tons of money. This is what we eat and sleep. what we eat and sleep thinking about how to make that happen. So partners rely on each other. So don't go in the other direction either. Don't just ghost it and say, well, call me when it's finished. There will be times where we might want to fill in some gaps, something's not making sense, or need some more information on something. It's like a partnership. So you got to be there for each other, and great things will happen in the end. So when you finally get the good copy ready, you've been sent to it, here's a big mistake I see a lot. You rewrite it yourself without testing it and right at publishing time. If someone's a conversion copywriter like me, so we collect a lot of data, we also validate that messaging, we test it with users and stuff like that. Everything we do, every word, the length of everything, it's all chosen for a reason. And what happens is the best copywriter, they will present their copy to you. They will go through it with you. And then it's a great time to ask questions, to tell them what you're concerned about, because what you see, like I said, the data may show something that is different from what you thought. It might not be, it might be the opposite of what you thought. And then that message gets tested as well. So if there is a risk there, it's a calculated risk. That's the best kind of risk to take. Let me just back up for a second. So when you write it yourself, right before you publish it, you're kind of going on your own intuition, which sometimes is not the best way to do it. It's not tested, and maybe you haven't spent as much time doing copywriting, so it might not be in the best form as well. So try not to mess with it, but talk to your copywriter about it before you need to do that. Show your copywriter before it's delivered. And that also applies to when you're handing it over to your designer, your web designer, or a web developer. Show it to the copywriter. Sometimes the designer does something, they go kind of off and do their own thing. It becomes harder to read. If it's hard to read, we already talked about this, nobody will read it. And if your web developer is writing something or messing with the design and color, that's going to cause a lot of problems too. They should stick to the code and not mess with that. So they might have opinions about it. They might not even value the writing itself because they just don't deal with it. They don't know. That's it for now. That's all, folks. There's a couple things that I wanted to give away, but we can either do questions and answers now, or we can do it after that. What do you think, Maddie?
No, I think that, I just had one comment on the last slide. We don't have any questions right now, but the one comment that I had is, obviously it's a collaborative process, as Michael is saying, it's a partnership, and there is a kickoff period where, there can be an intake that the copywriter provides that says, what are some of your feelings about what you think works? So what copy have you been using, or do you want to test, that you want to explore, that's on your, in your notebook, so to speak? Share that and say, these are the things that I really want to see. How does it go up against, Michael's crafted copy? Michael doesn't care. Is his copy better than your suspicion of what's going to be good copy? He wants, again, as he said, your business to grow as a result of this work. So that's a great time to share all of those ideas that you have, and then let the copywriter fit those into different areas of your website where they make sense.
That's a really great point. And that actually leads to here. So I put together a free guide to hiring a copywriter. It actually goes into what you just said, Maddie. It talks about, we're going to ask you a lot of questions. We're going to want to know what your goals are. It's a more detailed version of this. So there's a link to that. It's free. I can see about dropping that into the chat. I don't know if I could do it from here. Yeah, you can go there and get what you need.
I'll provide that.